It's very lonely here at the moment. Sundays are the days that I get to actually come home, or not even come home. I'm usually starting here. Sundays are the days where I get to be here and I get to have friends come to me, which is awesome. Like, the fact that I am a guy who is, unfortunately thoroughly an adult, and yet I get to have a regularly scheduled game to play. It feels like a rarity. And it's because we've put a lot of effort into making sure that that schedule is there and it's maintained. But sometimes those schedules will fail. Happens. Liz and Scott, not even here. Kate, working. It kind of happened by chance that it all happened on the same day. And I work... You know the Ghost Who Walks? You're absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct. Thing is, I work Monday through Friday. I'm the weird one among the four of us because I'm the one who actually has the quote-unquote regular schedule. So I don't work on Sundays. And as a result, I'm the only one here, and I just didn't want to go again without streaming. And then the Ghost Who Walks comes in and drops an absolute bomb on me, which is fantastic. You have friends coming to me right now. That feels good. That feels so good. And yeah, schedules are part of the lie. Nefarious. Are we dropping some mage hints in here? I mean, look, I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with. I don't do a whole lot of edition warring. As you may or may not have guessed, I tend to go with the latest thing often, not always, but often, because I'm a designer at heart and I see the changes as something tempting to look at. And they can always revert changes. I mean, they went wild with D&D 4th edition and then came back to something much, much closer to what people recognized with 5th. And then 5.5, really not a whole lot changed. A couple of things, yeah, but it still is very much a 0.5 edition. It's not a whole thing. Dio, so wonderful. So wonderful. And yes, the disembodied voices that listen to me, and then I listen to them. This episode of RPG Clinic is brought to you by Battery Acid. Tired of being tired? Try Battery Acid today and burn the tired right off. Try our new flavor, Nitrous Nirvana. Battery Acid is something that I'm like, that's going to be the thing, right? The end of Datafall, it'll be Battery Acid all the way down. And that's sometimes how role-playing games work. Yeah, Zablica, that is true. They're back to being the Giovanni. And that is a little frustrating. That does, as I discussed in the last Clinic Hours, there does seem to feel a little bit like there's some J.J. Abrams in this edition. I don't know if that's enough to hate it yet, but I do feel like there's a little bit of, hey, you changed some things and we're changing it back, instead of building upon what had already changed. Some things stay different, right? Like not every clan is getting put back the way that it was before, but it does feel a little bit like there's kind of a, these things that people were talking about in 5th edition, they no longer apply. And it just feels like, the end of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, where there was just kind of this big middle finger turned to be like, well, fuck everything that The Last Jedi was trying to do. The Last Jedi was a flawed film itself as well, but I feel like it had at least a couple of interesting things in there and that I wanted to see, and nope, didn't. If there's one thing that I wish it didn't do, it's, and spoiler warning for films that are very old at this point, I kind of wish that they hadn't just reverted away, because in Last Jedi, they said specifically, you're nobody. And then, nope, turns out you're actually Palpatine's descendant. And gosh, it feels sort of weird to be like, being a Jedi is sort of an inherited position. It just doesn't feel great. Make a new clan? Yeah, they definitely could have. I think that would have been a worthwhile thing to investigate, like a new clan rising? A hidden antediluvian? We'll see. But the things that are interesting me right now, very specifically about the announcements that were made alongside the playtest, which I've still been going over and still don't find anything in there that I'm specifically like, this is awful. But a lot of things that I'm like, I really would want to see this in action. And of course, I haven't had time. Look where I am. I don't have any players. They're gone. But I am excited by the fact that they have given life to the idea that Mage and Changeling are coming back. 2 games that I hold very fondly. It is strange that Vampire is the game out of the, we'll call the major releases. We'll say that the major releases in White Wolf, World of Darkness games are Vampire, Werewolf, and Mage. We'll put Changeling in at 4th. Very rabid fan base, but smaller than the rest. And Vampire is actually my least favorite of them. I think it's the easiest one, and I think that there's a lot of value there. I think that it's wonderful for LARP play. I think that Vampire actually is one of my favorite games to LARP. I've LARPed all 4 of them. I have never run Vampire. I ran Mage, I ran Changeling, and I ran Werewolf as LARPs. Werewolf, I did more playing than running, but I did a little bit of running of Werewolf as well. And Werewolf is a fantastic live-action game if you can be out in nature, in the woods, doing stuff there, but it can be kind of difficult because Werewolf, people tend to want a lot of combat, and because of the nature of Werewolf, they want a lot of mass combat, and that can be a hard thing to run. But Vampire really does do well with the, we're going to sit down and we're going to scheme for most of it, and if there's combat, it's going to be quick and between just a couple of people, and there isn't really going to be a whole lot of brawling happening, because otherwise the masquerade. So Requiem, I mean, fair, but at the same time, there's room for Twilight. I know it sounds kind of weird. I at one point was very much somebody, I believe I've said this before, I was somebody who liked to bag on the Twilight series, and then I realized I hadn't really read it, so I did. I read a good chunk of the first book, and I realized it's fine. It's fine. It's not for me. It's very much designed to be a book series that has a demographic that it shoots for, but it does it decently. It does it well. It's just alongside all the other sort of vampire adjacent fiction that you can see out there, but they're not terribly compatible. Fuse a werewolf larf with Dagger or some nonsense. I don't know if that's nonsense. I think it'd be pretty cool. Thing is, Mage was the hardest one to run I needed buy-in from players. Like, I really needed that buy-in from players because I did not have the time to argue with them. I was handling dozens of players at once. I had to be able to be like, look, if this is an effect you want to do, go for it. But, like, you have to take my word for it when I tell you what would work and what won't. And we had a rule, actually, when I ran Mage as a LARP for years. And the rule was, if you want to talk to me after the game and argue your point about whether or not a certain effect would have worked, or whether you had the right spheres, or whether it was supposed to be vulgar or coincidental, you could, but you couldn't argue in-game. Like, that was the risk that you took. You simply could not argue while I was in-game because that was, like, okay, so players had, like, you could take, like, 10 seconds to be like, I want to remind you of something, or, but doesn't the rules say this? But after that, after like 10 seconds, I had to be like, no, we have to move on. Just because we needed to keep things moving. In Mage the Ascension, you're allowed to describe effects, because you are essentially a mage, a wizard, and you can describe the effects that you want to put forward into the world, but the magic system is somewhat complicated. You have to have a certain amount of power to do it. You need to know a certain amount of what they call spheres, which are like the 9 different sections of magic. You have to be able to adapt it to your own paradigm, how your character believes magic works. And this could be something that you could get into some arguments about. Could I imagine an Exalted LARP, would that even be possible? It is, and I have played in one. It was not great. But I don't think that it was not great because of the rule set. I think it was not great because the one that I played in, it was small. It was a small scale one. There were, like, it was essentially just a tabletop game where we got up and moved around and talked and acted as if we were in character. And then when combat happened, we would describe things as we would have done it. And the storyteller just kind of hand-waved it based on what we said, or we would sit down and roll it out. So it was a LARP hybrid with tabletop. And yeah, you can do it as part of Exalted. You can do any role-playing game live action to a certain degree. You just have to have a conflict resolution agreement. And sometimes that is when we have to start resorting to dice, we will sit down and do dice. Yeah. No, Exalted was fine in that respect. I mean, it was not great because I committed my cardinal sin when I was playing in that Exalted LARP. Yeah, it was not great. Part of the reason why is because I did commit that cardinal sin. I know I've told this story before, but why not? It was in that LARP that I had one of the players come up to me and say, you know, when I'm LARPing, I want to get in it. I want it to feel real. I want to explore. That's the thing that I want to do. And so, you know, if there's ever anything that your character would want to do to mine, you should just go ahead and do it. And me, being a naive dumbass, believed her. And so at one point, when it became dramatically appropriate for my character to kiss her character, I did. It was not a terrifically passionate kiss. It was relatively chaste, all things considered. But, of course, then, for months afterwards, she assumed that that's because I had feelings for her and pursued me when I did not. And then when I made that clear, I caught flack being like, but you kissed her. And I said, but she wanted me to. She told me that's what she wanted. And that was me being stupid. Don't do these sorts of things without a lot more conversation out there, kids. Just don't. What a dumb thing I did there. Really stupid. I thought that it was going to be relatively innocent, right? Like, all I was doing was essentially pressing my lips to hers. I was not, you know, it wasn't an open-mouthed kiss. I wasn't groping her. She wasn't groping me. I was just like, nope, this is appropriate. This is the moment. And she read way too much into it, and I did not. Of course, several years later, I started to study performing as a serious educational and academic concept. And there, this sort of thing happened. But even then, we didn't have the same language that we do now in order to communicate stuff like that. Intimacy coordination didn't actually pop up as a like standardized thing until relatively recently. And when I was at university, you just were supposed to talk about it. And even worse, sometimes you were just like, okay, well, you and your fellow actor go off into a back room somewhere and kiss for a second. And by a second, we mean several minutes, just so that, you know, it doesn't feel weird anymore, so that you can work out the awkwardness, so that then when you're on stage, it'll feel great. It does not feel great. That is essentially the lie that people tell each other when two people want an excuse to make out in such a way that they can then claim that it was for art or academics, and so therefore it either wasn't cheating or it wasn't. Or it didn't mean anything, but you still got to have that roll around. That's not what we recommend anymore. But yeah, don't do that in a LARP. Just don't, until you have had a significant conversation that's beyond just saying, this is what I want, and so you'd better do it, which is how I kind of took that. I took it that I would be insulting her if I didn't kiss her. No, that's not how it was. I mean, now it was pretty clear. She wanted me to kiss her, and she wanted that excuse. She wanted it to happen in game, and then hopefully it would bleed into out of game, and therefore we would be a couple, or at the very least we'd start hooking up. And I had no interest in it at the time, so not fantastic. One of my role-playing regrets. So I do have to be cautious of that sort of thing. When I play with my players here, we don't live action play. We're just sitting here at the table. But we're here and we have been very, very clear to ourselves that one of the things that we enjoy role-playing is relationships, or if you want to just get right down into it, the horniness of it all. But it's also something that we put caps on and that we are all consenting. We have our safety tools. They're here. If you are a regular viewer of this channel, you should know the spiel by now. We will go through it every time we play, because we want to make sure that we can use it properly. But that's the price that we pay, going over our safety tools all the time in order to be able to do those sorts of things in game and feel safe and comfortable with it. I mean, we're two couples, so we also just, we do need to make sure that because everybody knows that secretly the only person that I want in this entire world is Scott Humphrey, that we don't cross those boundaries. So there it is. Have any of you ever crossed bleed lines out there in chat while we're here? Have any of you done anything in a role-playing game either because you just desperately wanted to do it in real life, or because you'd hoped that somebody else would? Or have you had that happen to you? Just curious. It depends. A lot of role-playing now is done online, and so those sorts of things, I'm not sure if they're more common or not. Online gives an anonymity. There's very much a feeling like if you are playing online with others, and you don't have that physical space between you, that you're remote, that there's a detachment there. And I'm wondering whether that detachment might increase or decrease people's willingness to be sly about wanting things. It's a question. It's a strange question, to be sure, but it is a question that I have out there. I used to play in chat room games quite a bit, and there were definitely some people there who were making use of role-playing in order to have some escapism in their lives, to enjoy the cybers, as it were. But I don't necessarily know how much harm there is, depending on if everybody is consenting. Role-playing is role-playing, and part of the reason we role-play is to explore things that we aren't. And it's to explore situations that we can't or won't have. So, there is that. Flower of August, there was one thing with a second ed sidereal where I didn't realize the PC's power needed them to be intimate, but the fade to black came down instantly there. Yeah. So there are games out there that do specifically put mechanics and rules and powers behind erotic situations, intimate situations. Exalted is one of them. There are a couple of things in here. There's, pillow talk is a thing, and it's described in these books. This is beyond even things like the the Scrolls of Exalted. What was that? Oh man, here, I gotta find it. It's somewhere in my the Scrolls of Swallowed Darkness. That's it. Which was a joke thing that they had at their Monster Hearts. Yeah, Monster Hearts absolutely does this. But then there was also a D&D 3rd edition supplement that came out that basically put, sex front and center, and it was published as a real book, and it had a lot of art in it, and that art was basically cosplayers. It was all photographs. So, yeah. EXXX Alted. Yeah, the Scroll of Swallowed Darkness. So it was a parody source book, but it was semi-legitimate. It was released on April Fool's Day, if I remember correctly. 2009? Flower of August, yes, I believe you are correct. But of course, Exalted also has the red rule. A rule that should be a part of any or most, I would say, role-playing games. I would argue every single one, but I can imagine that there might be some role-playing games out there where the whole point of non-consensual sexual activity is the point. But at that point, you have to just make sure that everybody is still okay with it. And even then, you should be able to pull out whenever you want. You should be able to stop whenever you want. But the red rule is a good way of handling these sorts of things. The red rule, of course, being a rule that says that no matter what the mechanics say, a player can say that an attempt to seduce their character doesn't work. And the storyteller has that ability as well. The weird thing about the red rule as it's presented in Exalted 3rd Edition is that it separates the storyteller from players. It makes hints that the storyteller is a player too, but it's very clear about how the players shouldn't have to worry about this, and the storyteller kind of. And I think that just should go for everybody. But you kind of have to make it clear to players that if you intend for powers not to work, if you don't think the power should work, then they might want to consider taking other powers. And if they do take those powers and then you decide then that they shouldn't work because of the red rule, you need to find some other way to resolve things so that players don't feel shafted. But yeah. Thanks, Requiem. Or no, Gil. It was Gil who did it. Yeah, thanks, Gil. Yeah, you gain other human forms having sex with them rather than killing them. Being a charm that does do sex good is hilariously bad, but the charms that let you capitalize on intimacy or social bonuses isn't. So, I don't think that that's necessarily a terrible thing, Alfarius. We have tons of powers in the books that are behind me, in the books that are everywhere these days, that says that you're good at fighting, that says that you're good at athletics. There are some powers that mean that you're good at climbing, falling, dexterous things, even some that say that you're good at social things, and I'm not sure why that means that you should not have a charm that says you can do sex good. I think that there is definitely ways that you could abuse it, and I think that there's definitely going to be people who will gather around a table and giggle at themselves because they're going to use a charm that makes, boner of the infinite or whatever, but sex is one of those things that part of the reason why I enjoy having sex as a subject in role-playing games is because it's something that we often just don't talk about. It's considered private, and, that I don't have any problem with keeping it private. I believe that involving somebody in your sex life without your consent or their consent is a bad idea. But I think that role-playing is a way that we can explore that. I've had more than one person play in my games and use sex as a way to discover about their own identity in the context of these games, either by playing a character of a different sexuality than they presented as at the time. I've had players who've presented as different genders as they presented at the time, and then later on cited those games as moments where they realized that they were that they needed to transition. Games are a way for you to explore those sorts of topics that otherwise are kind of difficult to do without having a lot of risk. Remember that sex is also something that can be inherently risky for a significant portion of the population, and so even if you want to explore it, it's not as easy as just saying, well, I'll just go out and find it. That's just not necessarily easy. But with a group of trusted friends in the context of a role-playing game where everything is at least one step removed, you got that ability. Hey, I'm glad that you're catching the stream. I'm glad that you're here. The thing is, I also don't mind that that some things can be humorous in terms of these games, right? Like I would not be against a couple of charms in Exalted, for instance, being dedicated to things that are just there to make us giggle. Now, it would be weird if they only were about sex. Then it would kind of other the sex category. But there's some room for humor. There's some room for joy in these games. The problem is, though, that every charm you add is more space, right? The Exalted core book is already massive. And saying, well, we're going to add another 5 pages, is it worth it? Now, maybe 5 pages is not so bad if the book's already 400 pages long, then it's just 405. But if your book's only 80 pages long, 5 is a significant percentage for what are essentially jokes. So, yeah, like a joke character turns into the campaign's MVP. Joke characters are something that I've had a whole bunch of experience dealing with as a storyteller. Not from this group, not necessarily. There have been a couple of characters in our campaigns who I wouldn't call them joke characters, but they definitely have at their core a humorous concept, or that they are being played, at least in part, significantly for laughs. And that's not necessarily a deal breaker. There is, however, an issue with tonal dissonance. If everybody else wants to play a game without goofiness at its core, then having that joke character can be really rough. And then if the game evolves and your character doesn't evolve with it, that's rough. That is rough. Word count is precious and there's never enough. No, Alfarius, there is often too many restrictions placed upon these sorts of things, but those restrictions are there to make creativity bloom and make things palatable. Angel Wick, so embarrassingly enough, you're going to have to remind me what the Naked Now was in terms of an episode, or I guess I can look it up. I don't remember the names of the episodes compared to the thing. One of the interesting bits is that based on my storytelling style, a lot of the games are transitory memory for me as opposed to locked in. I experience the story and I remember it and I move through it, but like when a campaign is over, I kind of put it aside. I don't tend to rewatch campaigns. I don't tend to revisit by rereading the wiki because I'm thinking of new ideas. I'm moving forward. That's not to say that people shouldn't move backward. It's just my style, which is very prep light, forces me to think about things, and so I just don't have the room in my head. So I don't remember things like episodes or whatever. Yeah, Gil, I think there's that. There's a huge difference between this makes me laugh or I'm doing this for the sole purpose of making a joke character. I would tend to agree. One of the things that I think is very clear for me when I am seeing somebody make a character is, I'm doing this because it makes me smile. I'm doing this because I think that it'll be a fun moment. And somebody who's like, I just don't care about the game. All I care about is goofing off. And for a one-shot, goofing off, fucking go for it. Paranoia as a game is like built on that, or originally it was. There are some people who play Paranoia quote-unquote straight these days, but Paranoia as a game was kind of built for people to just blow off steam. That's literally the reason that game happened, was because people just wanted an excuse to run around, not know the rules, and kill each other, and for it to have very little consequence. It was a palate cleanser. That's the whole point of that game when it first came out. And it's just weird when you are playing the palate cleanser when everyone else is trying to eat the main course. So. Yes, Angelwick. Yeah. Okay. So, people watching Exaltation Nexus, man, I salute you. The tech is rough. We are rough. I have hair. It's weird. Our current safety tools would have affected it? Maybe. The safety tools actually happened as a result of changeling the dreaming. Changing the streaming, I should say. We have used safety tools. You know, we discuss our lines and our veils and all of that, but we only started using our safety cards and developed them after we had some concerns about the content of the session edging close to where people were comfortable at their limits. And then we realized that we would prefer to have something that we could use in-game live, because we had a discussion after the session, and I was like, oh man, I really wish you told me. I wish you told me that things were getting a little too intense. I definitely would have acknowledged and backed off. And the answers were, we didn't need you to back off, but we were just getting to the limit where we were worried that things were going to get worse. And also, it's hard to bring that up, especially on stream, to use your words, because when you have an audience, unless you're used to it, stopping the game and saying, I'm not comfortable, it's sort of like the whole, you know, and in the context of the show must go on, which is sort of drilled into performers, and like it honestly, that's not always a great idea. And so when we did this, the main reason that we started using these safety cards was because it was way easier for us to say, okay, well, I can hold a card up, and that's fine. That's easy enough to do. And the green card, because it was originally we called it the green card, and then we called it the play card once we came up with the symbols for it. Because originally they were just colors, and then we realized that just colors kind of made it hard for the colorblind. But the play card very specifically was so that people could say, now I'm used to using the tool in a way that I don't have to feel awkward about it. Because I'm not interrupting anything, I'm just showing everybody that I'm having a good time. And this ended up being very, very important because it made it was much easier to then do this. And this, we tend to use most often at the beginning of sessions, if we're using it, saying like, hey everybody, I should warn you about something. I'm not feeling well today, or I'm feeling okay, but I might have to duck out for a second because I have to take some meds. Or just so that you know, this session, it's going to be intense. Is everybody okay with that? Or is everyone in a good mental place? And then the stop card is one that I think I'm the only one who's pulled it. If there's anybody out there who actually remembers this, please tell me. But as far as I know, I'm the only one who's actually pulled a stop card and had to use it in the context of a session. And I did that because I was in significant distress. Not because of the content of the role-playing game, but because I just wasn't feeling well. I forget if it was pain or if it was illness, but like I was sick. I was really sick. And I thought that I could make it, and then I tried, and oh yeah, we also did it during a fire alarm. That's correct. The fire alarm played, we red carded it, we shut down, and then we started streaming from outside in the winter inside Scott's car. 10 Candles was the only other close time. Yeah, it was close. But 10 Candles, we still hadn't had the, we hadn't practiced enough with the cards, and we didn't use them the way that we should have. That might have been it, Requiem. Possibly, yeah. That might have been it. Yeah, don't do kidney stones, folks. It sucks. Yes, and Requiem, so in terms of safety cards, for the audience, We at one point when we were developing them, we were like, should we have emoji for the audience? And then we realized that the answer was no. The weird thing about the audience pulling safety cards is that if we give the audience too much control over the game, for one thing, if we were worried that people would abuse the safety cards, somebody who's new to the channel, somebody who's coming in and for the first time and sees that we have these as emotes and then flashes one of these, we'd have to stop immediately. The whole point of this card is that if somebody holds it up, it's not a joke. You have to stop. It's the equivalent of pulling a fire alarm. The same with this card as well, actually. Like we never, ever, ever joke with these cards. We can't, because if we do, then they lose their meaning, right? And we were worried that audience members, given the opportunity, some of them might troll and try to use the cards, or some of them might not realize what they were for, but also that we had to make sure that they treated themselves safely, but that we couldn't necessarily interrupt the stream for everybody, that we couldn't make changes for everybody, depending on how many people we have on the stream at any one point in time. So we then started saying that audience had different options, that they could message mods, they could message us, or that they can quit. They can back out of the stream. And the reason we want you to message a mod, by the way, we should make this clear on stream, is that also if you tell us, hey, I am not comfortable with this, then we can say, great. We'll tell you afterwards, we'll message you on Discord and we'll say, in the session, you can pick up at this time. Or you don't have to watch this session, but we'll tell you the important stuff without getting into the stuff that makes you uncomfortable so that then you can watch. We've had great success with that a couple of times. We've had audience members tell us we're not comfortable with a thing, and then we have said, great, coming up in this session, we'll flag it for you so that you do not have to watch. And I think that's worked out. Yeah, Zablica. The red cross symbol can't be used for anything else, even if portrayed fictionally. So the red cross symbol, part of that is also because they have a trademark that they have to defend. You know, like that's a thing. But yeah, also the whole point of the red cross is that you are supposed to use it to identify yourself as a medic. You're a non-combatant. And if everybody wore it, or if people wore it for no reason, then it would lose its meaning, and then medics would be subject to attack. So, Gil, you were a great example as somebody to do that with. You made yourself quite clear, quite known, and there wasn't judgment that we could feel on your part. But you were like, "I'm not comfortable with a certain subject matter," and we were like, "Great." And don't worry, it's something that we all wanted to do. We all wanted to have that moment, to have that experience. And it was a great role-playing session for all of us. But we also didn't want to make you uncomfortable. So we found ways to make that work. And we can still do that, right? That's the magic of safety cards. For everybody who said this means that I can't do something, I actually think that for every one time that we can't do something, it means 10 times that we can. Things that we didn't think that we could do before. That's the weird thing about the safety cards that we've discovered as we've gone forward with it. Because I've seen people kind of worry. For instance, there are rules in some games now that say you can't die unless you're okay with it, unless the player says, I am comfortable with death as a result. And we've had people complain. Well, what does that mean? That means that combat doesn't mean anything. It means that death no longer matters because players just will always say, no, I don't die here. I can't stop my players ever. And I think it's the opposite. I think it means that now death matters. Because now I can't kill my players if that's a rule because I miscalculated the difficulty of an encounter. Or if somebody rolls dice and just has absolutely rotten luck, rolls 4 botches in a row, and then I'm like, well, then you're dead. And it's too bad because that campaign was going great. The story was fantastic. Everyone was connecting with your character, and now the story's over. It sucks. So safety tools are one of those ways in which instead of it saying now we can't do these things, it actually means there's so much more we can do because we don't have to worry that we're going to inadvertently hurt somebody because they can stop. They know that they can stop us. I can describe situations that are scarier or more intimate or more emotional without having that same worry in the back of my head that like, I wonder if everyone's going to be okay with this and they're just sitting on their hands and swallowing it. So, yeah, Requiem, it was the Rite of the Winter Wolf episode. Yeah, the tools aren't weaponized here. They never have been. And if they were to be weaponized, then honestly, at that point, I just would probably not play with that person. I think the X card doesn't work as well. I'm not gonna say it doesn't work, but it doesn't work as well for us, the way that we want to play. The X card, as described, has a very different feel. Might not seem like it, but it does. And I'll actually get into that in a second. I'm just gonna go through the rest of the messages here so I don't miss it. Dio, I love the safety cards. I'd never encountered anything like it until found RPGClinic, and they make a big difference in how I play at any table. Yeah. I'm sorry that we didn't start with them. It's one of the things that I am most happy with is that all of us are just like, yeah, at the beginning of every session, we're going to talk about the safety cards. It takes us a minute and it makes a difference. At least I hope it does. It does for us. And if it makes a difference for anybody out there, then that's what we would prefer. Yeah, Requiem, D&D, yeah, people complain about that also play D&D, where death rules as written is kind of like a speed bump more than anything else. Yeah, safety tools in 2016 were a very different thing. You're right. But if I go here and I look at the X card, so the X card, as defined, it's under the Creative Commons. I believe our safety cards are also Creative Commons. We've recently kind of made it clear that our stuff, our RPGClinic stuff, is considered Creative Commons. I think. I just have to check that, but yeah, I think we've kind of said that like our stuff is Creative Commons. You can remix it, you can use it. If you want to exploit it for commercial purposes, you have to talk to us first. But we're likely to just let you use it. And I think the safety cards themselves, there's even like you can use it in commercial works. We don't care. We just want to be attributed. But yeah, we had safety cards in LARPs as well. The tabletop was different. And so the X card specifically says, so to use the X card at the start of your game, you simply say, I'd like your help to make this game fun for everyone. If anything makes anyone uncomfortable in any way, so you draw an X on an index card. I'll use the stop card here first. No, I shouldn't do that. I'll just hold up a different thing. So let's say that this had an X on it. Just lift this card up or simply tap it. And you put this card in the middle of the table. You don't have to explain why. It doesn't matter why. When we lift or tap this card, we simply edit out anything X carded. And if there is ever an issue, anyone can call for a break and we can talk privately. I know it sounds funny, but it will help us play amazing games together, and usually I'm the one who uses the X card to help take care of myself. Does everyone consent to using the X card? Or is there another tool you would rather use? Either way, the people playing here are more important than the game we're playing. Thank you for helping us make this game fun for everyone. So that's the whole concept of it at the beginning. And the thing is, the X card is... the X card is a different way than our stop card because so first off, we don't like the idea that you're not allowed to, based on what is written here, there's 36 pages in this document, which is good, but it says you don't have to explain why and it doesn't matter why. I don't think that that's the wording that I would choose for this particular design. I think it's important to say that if you're holding up a card, specifically the stop card, the point is the game stops. That's what happens. I do this, the game stops. Now, it says that we have to discuss before we get back to things. That's the thing that I want. What I don't want is a card that says no without any kind of context or elaboration, because then that doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to get better. What I want is for someone to say no, and then they can, if they're not comfortable talking about it, they can say like, I just can't deal with it right now, but I have to stop. And I think that's fine. But it's weird, like for instance, if somebody has a phobia of bees, and I introduce a character who is a big, lovable bumblebee, and this person hits the X card and then refuses to tell me why, then nothing is going to stop me from bringing that bee back because I'm not going to know. Or even if I do know, now I'm going to be nervous. Is it every insect? Is it anything with a stinger on it? So I prefer the 3-card system, first off, because I think that this is in fact the most important card. This is the most important card because this is the one that everyone can touch, handle, and feel without any repercussion, and it changes nothing other than making sure that everyone knows that I'm having a good time. And this makes it more comfortable to use the other cards. That's why I think I need this. It's also fantastic because it means that if somebody is really into it, into the moment, and you're like, are you okay? They can do this and they don't have to leave the moment any more than it takes for them to lift the card and then put it back down again. It also is a way for me to sort of say, hey, are you okay? And it's easy to lie. It's easy to say, yeah, I'm okay. Let's keep going. But if I do this, I'm deliberately saying this card has a loaded meaning. And this card's loaded meaning is I feel safe to continue even if I don't seem that way. The yellow card, the pause card, this is actually, in my opinion, the second most important card. And all three of them are basically up here at the terms of importance. The reason why this one's most important is because this allows somebody to say, like, hold up, I need to talk to you, but it doesn't mean I have to stop. And that's kind of an important thing because a lot of people get very uncomfortable when you're like, everyone has to stop because they think this means everyone has to stop having fun because of me. Whereas this says, I just need everyone to pay attention to me for a moment because there's something important that I need you to understand. If I'm holding this card, it's important enough that I'm holding a card. And then this card is important just because it's the emergency stop button. But it's strange when I describe these three cards and I say that this is actually, to me, the least important card. I guess it's not correct to say least important, but it is the one that I use the least by far, and it's also the one that I think will see the least amount of use for most tables. And I think that these two are just as important and just as useful, but they will be seen more often. So. Yeah, Zablica, the thing is, I would rather use the X card if I was playing with strangers and I couldn't trust them. If everybody was like, we use the X card, I'd be like, great, and I'd rather have the X card than nothing. 100%. One of the reasons why, when we had these printed, which you can get these, you can make them yourself. RPGClinic.com/safety, we have PDFs that you can download and print. We have links there as well to drive-through cards if you're in the United States. That's the cheapest place to get cards like this printed. You definitely don't have to. And the amount that we're charging is literally 1 penny of profit because it wouldn't let us have 0 pennies of profit. So you're basically paying shipping and the printing cost. But make playing cards, we have these. This is for the rest of the world, this is your best bet, but also they are made of plastic, which is a little more durable. And the reason why I wanted these made of plastic is so that you could use these in LARP play, that you could stuff them in places and then pull them out and then they wouldn't be completely wrecked. And so that you could use them in LARP play, because this is what I wish we had for LARP play. And the drive-through cardstock's pretty good. Oh, good. That's great. I don't know. We actually had them delivered to somebody in the States to test, but we didn't get them ourselves. Shipping from drive-through cards to Canada is stupid. But in having these cards, in LARP play, the other way that I've seen it is green, yellow, red. And I've seen people do that too, right? Like, I would prefer the cards because this is kind of a very simple, like, hey, and they're double-sided so everybody can see it. I'd even potentially print them much larger if you were a storyteller. But the problem with this is that like some people use thumbs up or thumbs down as normal gestures, so not always easy. But yeah, there's plenty of great safety tools out there, and I don't think you should use ours if it doesn't work for you. But I do think you should consider it, give it a try, because I think that they can be very useful and they can be very helpful. So, but really, this I think is my favorite. I want to know when people are doing okay, and that's the thing that lets us play hard, so that we can have more sex online. Datafall has not had nearly enough sex. At least that's what my players have told me. So we'll have to fix that. But they've been busy doing other things instead of each other or NPCs. But that's not to say that it won't happen. Yeah, if we had had safety cards back when I was playing in more LARPs, that would have been more helpful. The safety tools that we were using at the time were inadequate. Workspace story, yeah. Yeah, it's something. Our campaigns tend to embrace sex as a topic, so is what it is. It's how we do. Ah, Requiem. Okay, so interesting thing to put, but also I would say that when you're in the middle of events similar to how they've been experiencing things, sex may not be the first thing that they think of. But we'll see. They have recently got to the point where that might be a thing that will be more likely to come up for them. But what if they visit the Bureau of Serenity? What if that's what's about to happen? Remember that the Bureau of Serenity up in heaven, in the context of this, it's essentially a combination casino, theater, flophouse, and brothel. So there is something about drinking while staring directly into the lens of a camera. Man, if I got a complimentary gift bag of Celestial Coke, oof. Would it have caffeine in it? Problematic differently? Yeah. Very much so. Exalted is kind of wonderful for that sort of thing, and I do appreciate it. In terms of the state of the campaign, so we've had 14 episodes now, I think. 14. People seem to be having fun. I'm just curious as to one of the things when we're streaming is that we do things because we have fun, but we also do things because we want you to have fun. And part of me is also wondering, like, are people tuning in or are people not tuning in based on, is it because it's the summer and people are just doing things? Is it because you are having fun with the campaign or not having fun with the campaign? Is it because you like Cyberpunk or like Exalted or don't for either of them? Or do you just not like or especially like the mix? So that's the sort of thing that we're curious about. We do surveys every once in a while. We might have to get into them at some point soon, but if customs wouldn't take it away from me, I would just sell the goodie bag. Flower Vargas, you and me both. You and me both. Alfarius, what kind of hot sauce are you making? Like, what are the ingredients that you're popping in that? I'm so curious. Hot sauce is one of those really fascinating things for me because I tend to, like, I don't always have heat. Sometimes I will specifically elect to not have heat, but sometimes, like, heat is exactly what I want. And I've had some wonderful Thai dishes recently that have been quite hot, but, like, oh man, they're so good. How's the mobile base working for us? I think it's the first time we've done it in a game. So it's what we should have done in a way with Star Wars. Now, the reason that Star Wars Reach didn't work out is beyond just that, but The mobile base, I think, is actually pretty good because it does mean that we get to inherit and bring characters along with us. I think it specifically works for the kind of game that people were interested in, because the players wanted to be able to go around and visit different places and do different things, but also really like the idea of home bases. A lot of our successful games and both of our longest running games have a home base. Changing the Streaming and Werewolf the Apocalypse, or Werewolf Montreal by Moonlight, I should say, both of them had home base. In terms of Montreal by Moonlight, we actually had multiple, but they just really like to be able to have a place where they know that NPCs are, that they can go and they can talk to them. And so now we have it. It's the ship. So I think that's working out pretty well for us, just because they like to collect these things, like trading cards. Flower of August, totally understandable, like completely understandable. And that's one of the things, is that our time slot, we picked this one specifically because Sundays tend to be the days that are the easiest for us to wrangle. And the reason we shifted them to earlier in the afternoon, we used to play from 6 to 9. And then we shifted that to 5 to 8. And then we went from 2 to 5. Now that's our times locally. So we went from like after dinner to kind of during dinner to now after lunch and before dinner. And the reason we did that is mostly because we have a lot of Europeans who watch us, and Europeans, if you start it at 6 o'clock, they're often, well into like 11 at night when it starts. And for some people, they're night owls, and that's great for them, whatever. But we did find that we started getting more Europeans being able to tune in if we made it earlier. And then since then, of course, friend of the stream, Aragorn, and Sploovy and Pinky Pact has now taken the Sunday slot afterwards. So they tend to play at the 6 to 9 slot on Sundays. And it's not like they took that slot. Like if we have to change our times, we tell them, we try to coordinate, but like we're also, if they started streaming when we stream, we wouldn't be like, how dare you? We would be like, oh, well, okay. Look, there's too much content out there, folks. We can't accommodate every schedule. Zablica, it kind of did. Exaltridge Academy 2 had, there were other overriding concerns with that one, so they got to carry around a couple of NPCs just as part of their their hearth, right? Hearth of the One True Bell. They got to carry around a couple of NPCs with that, and that was fine. And then they had that. The thing is, they like to often collect more NPCs than that, and we were kind of worried because at that point we were just struggling with Essence and the port. So Alfarius, fermented one in the vein of Tabasco, but a random mix of peppers from your parents' garden, so pure and straight time. Excellent. Yeah, we're all getting old, Kung Fu Fenris. That is the way it is. The Exaltridge campaigns had a form of home base, yes. It wasn't as defined as Changing a Werewolf for sure. So Exaltridge Academy was originally kind of meant to be like fun hijinks in high school, and then kind of the story veered away from that in very specific terms. I don't know if that was necessarily a problem. Like, we enjoyed that campaign. It was really the mistake that we made of porting to Essence, with Essence not being ready, and for us to kind of realize that the port meant that a lot of what my players really wanted in their characters just no longer existed. That's Dio. It's totally fine to lurk. Like, I've lurked in your stream before, so because oftentimes you're live when I am working, and so I'll just put it off into the side. And also on work machines, I can't even log in, so I just leave it, so I can't chat. But that is, I did blow up the school. Well, I mean, yeah. Sometimes school's out forever. Requiem, I still feel uncomfortable sometimes with the idea that I'm an adult. It's very strange. Like, mentally, I can't quite resolve my age with how I pictured my father when he was this age. So it's an odd feeling. Welcome to being a millennial. I'm an elder millennial. It is true. It was a while before I could accept that I was a millennial. For the longest time, I thought I was Gen X, and I'm not. And then for a while, I was being described as a Zennial because I was on the cusp of Gen X and millennials. And now the term is elder millennial. So. Yeah, Dio, that's just, it's weird, right? And part of it is that I am childless, and that will be the state of things. But, yeah, maybe it's parenthood that marks that shift. I don't know. Not sure. Pretty soon it'll be elderenial, yeah. Mid-30s, yep. It's an interesting time, but I also do kind of genuinely believe that, you know, just feel the way that you want to feel, and just make sure that your behavior doesn't negatively impact the world. So there are millennials in their 20s? Whoa. Whew. Yikes. But it is what it is. At any rate. Yeah, so time slots are just the sort of thing that we have, that we deal with. I believe that there's Pinky Pact tonight, by the way. That would be in 3 hours from this point, if you were live, over at twitch.tv/Pinky Pact. 96 is the cutoff year. Okay. That makes sense. You know, I also don't think that parenthood necessarily makes you an adult. I think that it just kind of shifts your mindset by necessity. But that's what it is. Millennials can be 29. What the fuck? That is weird. That's weird, yo. Yeah, well. How are your games going? Hopefully you're in some games if you want to be in games. If you're not, I'm hoping that you're getting to watch games that you enjoy. I don't identify as a millennial, I identify as a 90s kid. Oh, that makes sense. Angel Wick, so yeah. That puts you right at that cusp. I graduated in 2000. My older sister is Gen X. And she's 4 and a bit years older than I am. Yeah, it's just important to keep enjoying the world on your own basis. You're running Dungeons of Drakkenheim. Okay. And after that, it's Exalted Time again, finally. Why do you say finally? Like, has your group been reluctant to get to Exalted? Or was it something that you were always looking forward to and you wanted to close this campaign out? Like, what's the thing? Reckon just ended a game and Changeling the Dreaming. Okay, very cool. Changeling, still probably my favorite of the games. Still now genuinely wondering if I'll ever run it again until I get an edition that I enjoy. Like, I was actively trying to brew some things in my mind, and now I've held off, knowing that the concept of hunger dice / rage dice are no longer a thing. So I'm curious what they're going to come up with, but we'll see. I'd take the Changeling job. I have no idea. I have to imagine that they've already got people on it, or the people who are waiting in the wings for it. And it's not like they'd have any reason to trust me, but I have been immersed in Changeling for the longest time. Weirdness is in a Daggerheart game. Character was almost eaten by a giant eagle. Yeah, that sounds like good times. Dio's also in a Daggerheart game. Kind of dragging him mostly because life is sucking the soul out of some of our players right now. Yeah. Yeah, that is unfortunate, and it is a reality. And it's just something that we deal with. I mean, I have dealt with that kind of thing for a long time as well. The lucky thing that I have here is that because we're on a regular schedule, it's sort of like a grounding moment for all of us. So even if the rest of the world sort of sucks our life out, this is sort of where we find it back. So we have that helpful. Only been running one game for the past 1-2 months. I assume that you mean 1 or 2 months as opposed to 1.5 months. You were the one who almost killed Rudis with the giant eagle. Okay, well, you know, I'm proud of you for that. You brought in some Exalted Nexus characters as recurring NPCs. Well, hopefully you're treating them well. They're getting a good day rate. 6 months. Ah. Okay, I understand. I mean, I've been only running one game. There remains also a question always as to whether or not am I going to be the one to run the next game, right? Like, that's a question that comes up. There's always an option that I won't be. We'll see. But I also don't know how long this campaign's going to last. And I'm not saying that because I'm like, I don't know how long this is going to last. It's more like I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe it'll be a long time. It's hard to gauge sometimes. The most important thing is whether players are having fun, and then it's also whether people are watching. So that's what we have. You all either like or love Exalted. Oh, okay. Fair of it. Finally, for a few reasons, we have 2 GMs taking turns. We have 2 fun campaigns, but both take much longer to run their course. And we've been playing D&D for years now, and we're all sick of it. Yeah, I get you. I'm a little sick of D&D too myself, but... oh, you're running Exalted Essence. How is it, Ender Anathema? Very curious. We were debating Essence for this campaign, like, up until we kind of started. So it's only because we all the players decided they wanted to play Sidereals that we ended up doing 3rd edition. If they had chosen different slats, we would have gone Essence. So I'm curious how you feel. No, it's not easy to find a group, Requiem. It's never easy to find a group that you can work with. That's my issue, is that I have a lot of difficulty kind of stepping forward and saying, great, here's a whole bunch of strangers, let's play. That's hard for me. So a lot of my issues in my brain about running stuff because it has become part of my social way of interacting and show appreciation for my friends. We should have a conversation about that, Kung Fu Fenris. For a while, that's how I was. And that is part of what I did with the web series that I wrote, is that I was processing a little bit about how that felt. And if there was going to be a 3rd season of LARPs, it would have delved a bit further into othering the storyteller, othering the GM, by their own workings. Often, I think it's often the storyteller who distances themselves, and that's what I was doing for a very long time. And I tried to work through it by writing a goofy little web series. So yeah, if there was a 3rd season, that was one of the things. One of the things that I also kind of hesitated to do was to give the storyteller too much to do in LARPs, because I was playing the storyteller and I didn't want it to look like I was writing things for myself. But the 3rd season, at that point, I felt like everybody had like their turn to be a center of attention. So I felt like that would have been the appropriate time for it. That was part of the pitch. You're also going to be running Exalted Essence. Okay. Now, I probably have asked this before and I may have forgotten. How do you pronounce your name? Is it Avasai? I'm probably butchering it, in which case I apologize. Avajai? The Nexus characters are doing well. Ray and her daughter Summer are helping train one pit fighter crew. Okay, excellent. Glad to hear. Jork works for the guild and has an administrative assistant with a Brooklyn accent who he calls Mr. J. I see. Yeah, Dio, I would have too. So Avajai. Okay. I'm glad that I didn't completely fuck it up. KFF, yeah, material stuff to give them is a rough thing. It's tough. Gifts are hard for a lot of different. Ooh, this screen is very dusty. I'm gonna have to clean it later. Gifts are very strange. Part of the issue is that when I had no money, it was a panic for me because I was like, I want to make sure that I get somebody something, but I can't afford it. And then I felt cheap. And when I did have money, it became tough because I was like, well, now the pressure's on, but I also realized I didn't want to get somebody something that they would never use. Gift giving in North America, at least, Canada, United States, kind of Western stuff, a lot of gift giving, especially around, Christmas time or the holidays, depending on your various secular or religious bent. Oftentimes when we're giving presents to people, what we're doing is we're showing our admiration, we're showing our appreciation for them. But I think that there was some kind of survey done, and it's something like 80% of presents that are given are not accepted and used well. And they tend to be garbage. Like we tend to just either take them, we accept them, and we either use them reluctantly or we don't use them at all. And then we either throw them out or we give them away. And that churn is an issue because it drives the economy, but it's frustrating because also you'll get people who are like, well, I don't want to give somebody something that they're asking for. I want to give them something special, something that they wouldn't think that they need. I don't want to just hand them a thing that they would have get by themselves. When it turns out that the gifts with the greatest amount of satisfaction tend to be gifts that you give somebody that they have asked for. And that's a tough thing to reconcile because I love the idea of getting somebody a gift that they don't expect. And I love the idea of getting them a gift that they didn't think of. But I hate the idea of getting a gift for somebody, spending the time to research it, find it, buy it. So I also have to earn the money to buy it, wrap it, give it to them, have them open it, have them pretend like they're thrilled, and then realize that they're never going to use it. So gifts are strange that way. And that makes me seem quite miserly, and I assure you that it's the opposite. One of the greatest gifts that a couple of people I know do is that we don't give each other gifts. We acknowledge it. We're like, you're good, I'm good, excellent. That's kind of the way that we operate, and it's a wonderful thing to just have that permission from somebody to be like, you don't have to get me anything and I don't have to get you anything. We'll still acknowledge things like birthdays. And oftentimes I will give gifts or receive gifts from people for no reason at all. Things like dinner's on me today, or I found something and I thought you might like it, so I got it for you. But we don't tie it to a particular date. Sometimes that's the greatest gift of all. Okay, you prefer third, Ander, but you're finding Essence to be a better fit for most of my friends. That simpler mixed groups are more of a default. Yeah, I think that's kind of like the key, is that it's not what I would call a simple game, but it is definitely simpler than Exalted Third, and that is a thing. And I think that for some groups that is exactly what you need. And if it means that you get to play Exalted, I think I'd rather play Essence than nothing at all. So, okay, question for me. What Exalt type have you wanted to bring into a game but have not had the opportunity to do so? What non-Exalt type? Same question. So, can confess something here. I haven't had an Exalt that I haven't brought in that I haven't wanted to bring in. And a large part of that is, I mean, I've run a lot of Exalted, but I don't need to, like, I've never had an Infernal in a game yet, as far as anyone knows. I'll say that very specifically. I haven't had an Infernal as far as anyone knows, and part of that is just because I've just never really felt the need. The the best part for running games for me is that I have the freedom to do what I want in terms of like, yeah, I can bring in things that other people don't expect and I can make changes. But one of the things that I've learned about running Exalted as a stream is that I often have to be careful because people make assumptions that things work the way that I don't intend them to. And some of that is because things change from edition to edition. Some people who have thoroughly immersed themselves in first edition and then skip second edition have different thoughts and opinions. Some people who are thoroughly versed in second edition who go to third edition are like, but that's not how those are supposed to work. And I don't care. I have not read all of the source books, and I don't feel the need to adhere to all of the source books as gospel. So when it comes to running Exalted types like liminals, for instance, I hesitate a little bit sometimes to run those just because there aren't a lot of information sources out there for these things, and I don't want to ruin liminals for other people by putting what I think it should be if I don't have anything that I'm particularly interested or fascinated by. Because I don't want somebody else to be like, oh, that's what liminals are? Oh, that's stupid, I don't like it. Well, I could be wrong. Or alternately, I'll say, I want to do this, and people will be like, but that's not how those things work. And I'm like, it's my game, I can choose whatever the hell I want to do with it. For some reason, that can make some people mad. So, yeah, exigents are a good way to do that. Yep. You don't feel okay bullshitting whole splats rules into being. So if I have an interesting idea for a story, then I will pluck what I need to from there. And when it comes to, for instance, Datafall, the campaign that I'm doing now, first of all, it's in a cyberpunk shard, so I'm already saying, like, fuck the continuity of everything. And then I'm also like, I have an interesting story, and so I'm going to do it the way that I want, and I will use an Exalt type that other people do not have fully defined, and it might be different than what they expect. And that's okay. But I don't tend to throw in all splats whenever I can. I think that might be too much. My least favorite is when players want to play a splat that just doesn't fit with how the game is supposed to run. So the best example that I can give for that is if while I was building Datafall, somebody said, I desperately want to play an alchemical, I would have been like, great, that fits in with this universe. I can totally find ways to make alchemicals work. I have thoughts on them. I have not revealed them in case I introduce an alchemical. But like, I had the plan. I was ready to go. But if somebody was like, I want to play an abyssal, and then somebody else said, well, I want to play a sidereal, and then the third person says, well, I want to play somebody who hates both abyssals and sidereals, then I have a problem with it, right? Like, there is some compatibility that needs to be done, because sometimes when somebody says I want to play an abyssal, it's because they really want to delve into what it means to be an abyssal. And I think that that can be a really interesting game to play. But it's harder to play that kind of character if the others aren't doing that, right? If you are playing a multi-splat game, it's a little harder for the theme of that game to be like, what does it truly mean to be an X, and be able to dive deep into it and involve the other players in the same way. It's possible, I'm not saying it's not, but it's definitely difficult, for instance, if you're the only abyssal and the other two players are, say, both solars. Because then you're putting the spotlight like directly on you, and then you can't necessarily be like, well, I have to return to the underworld and I gotta talk to the Death Lord, and then the other solars are like, yeah, but we don't want to do that. And then you're like, well, you're fucked. So that's where it gets a little tricky. So Avijay, yeah, so exigents I think are great for that. And I actually at one point was recommending to the players, like, you can play, if you want to play Sidereal is great, or you can play an exigent and that would be completely fine, and we'll still play third edition. Like, I was still completely okay with that because they all wanted to play third. They didn't want to play Essence. Once bitten, twice shy. But we were debating at one point. We had a solar, we had an alchemical, sidereals, lunar had brought up. Although everybody kind of was like interested in lunars, and they're like, but we just finished playing werewolf, so they were like, maybe not lunars. Exigent was definitely a possibility for some of them. Ask Kate about being the exigent of ham sandwiches. Fuck madame. And there, like, nobody kind of really said dragon blooded because the last Exalted campaign they were playing dragon blooded. So it's different. There's ways to kind of balance and figure those out. I love Abyssals conceptually, but every game I've played with one always goes for the redemption fight against the Hold of the Neverborn arc. Don't get me wrong, I get it, but it's just gotten old. Yeah. I mean, we've played that out. We've done it. It happens. It depends. It's for much the same thing. You'll get situations where, like, for instance, what am I thinking of for this? So, I never played in it, but there was a Black Spiral Dancer LARP that happened in Montreal for quite some time. And everybody bought into the idea of being a Black Spiral Dancer and, like, fighting for the worm and, bought into it. And for some people, I imagine it was just an excuse for debauchery. And for others, I think that they were genuinely interested in playing the other side of the conflict for once. And I think that was kind of cool. But if you play a Black Spiral Dancer in a campaign with a whole bunch of other werewolves, well, then you kind of can only go for a redemption arc, or it's a how long can I survive until I'm killed, or how many people can I take out before I'm inevitably taken out. So there are incompatibilities that exist. And that means that when you're creating characters, that's why I kind of really much prefer to create characters together as a group instead of separately. We used to do it separately, but now we kind of come up with the concepts together, oftentimes just because I want to make sure that everybody is compatible and nobody's stepping on each other's toes too much. Especially in games where you have 3 players, it can feel pretty bad if you are like, I want to be a character who has, like, whose big deals are, say, bureaucracy and stealth. And then another person says, well, I want my character's big deals to be bureaucracy and athletics. Well, having 2 bureaucracy majors for an ability that's a little more niche, people can often feel like then the spotlight's kind of ripped away from them. Because anytime that they'd be able to stand up and be like, I got this, there's somebody else who's like, yeah, I also got this. Now, it can work. There's definitely points. But it is a thing that we have to think about. Let me just go back up here. One of my players is a giant Death Knight lover, has been asking him for an Abyssal game for years. Yeah, but you kind of have to make sure that everybody's bought into it. Liminals are the goth option without that baggage? Depends. It depends. We still don't know, I think, enough about liminals really to make them easy to play. I know that they're an essence, but like it's tough. It's been slightly modified in that I let him custom design his lunar solar bond mate in our present game as one. Yeah, that's cool. That's a great example of a compromise that you can make. I'm really digging the sidereals and Datafall. Thank you, Angelwick. Their maiden charms and horoscopes and prophecies are such a unique angle of play, and their excellencies that reduce target number is such a game changer. Yeah, it's nuts. Kung Fu Fenders, yes, you heard BSD LARP. Yes, it's showing up in the same dress level of now one of us has to change. Yeah. It's... Which is fascinating to me, because you can also have a great campaign where everybody's just like, no, the 3 of us are all bureaucracy experts. but we're also experts on some other things, so there's ways to differentiate us. But if you make characters separately, what you might find is the first person to come up with a concept tends to be the one who gets what they want. And then everybody else takes a step back because they're like, okay, and they're trying to be polite. But then they're privately seething because they've had the plan for a while and they just didn't commit to it. But if everybody's creating their characters together, then it's a bit easier to kind of be like, okay, well, I want everybody to name like a couple of ideas that they had. And then you can be like, well, I was thinking of playing an archer who's also a fortune teller, but I was also thinking of playing I was really into the fortune teller idea, but like also maybe this one is non-combatant at all. And then somebody else can be like, oh, well, I was thinking of playing an archer, and then you can kind of collaborate before anyone sets. It's when you set into an idea and then that idea is taken away from you that it feels bad. So if you collaborate while you're doing it, it can really help. This is true of a lot of different role-playing games. It's especially true of class-based role-playing games. So the idea of being like, well, I want to play a fighter. Well, I want to play a fighter. Okay, well, I want to play this kind of fighter. Well, I want a multi-class. Okay, well, now they feel different, and so it's fine. But if you both show up and you've both rolled out your characters, and then you've got two fighters who are practically identical, it doesn't feel great. So. Angel Wake, I think that Resplendent Destinies are a big factor of fun for these people, and it's fun to see. So Requiem, I was in one game where we didn't discuss creation. What happened was one player had their character ready right away, and the rest of us had to make their character around theirs. It didn't feel good. It felt like we had to build a character around their story. Yeah. It isn't necessarily just what the dots on the sheet. It's also if somebody comes in and they're like, I was the chosen one of my nation. I was a prince of that nation who was exiled, and now I've come to these new shores, and there's bandits hunting me, and my royal family is hunting for me for a different reason, and everybody wants my head, but I also carry the sword of fractal blade, and if I manage to shove that into the stone, and then you're like, okay, fuck, this guy's got a lot going on. Where do the rest of us fit in? And then you'll have a lot of people who are stereotypically Canadian, who then say, great, well, I want to enable your story. So I will make changes and compromises to my character without asking you to make any changes or compromises to yours, but then they feel resentful of it. And that can be a real problem. And it is frustrating because all the first person did was get excited about a character. But this is also why I have a couple of, not hard and fast rules, but a couple of soft rules that I have when people make characters for me. As do not bring a character that you've previously played. Don't port a character from another game. And try not to bring a character that you've always wanted to play. And for these three things, there's a couple of reasons. First, if you're bringing a character that already exists, you're bringing an entire universe worth of expectation, history, lore with you that I don't have experience with, and that the other players likely don't have experience with. And as a result, you already have this entire shorthand, this entire vision of where the character is going to go, and I can't follow you there because I don't have the knowledge, and it also forces all of that on the other players and me. So not great. Also, when you port a character, you're often saying, okay, well, now your character is different because your character has different abilities in a different universe, different class, different systems. And all of those things can make a big difference, as it were. And so the character may not feel the way that you want it to, and therefore you are in trouble. So I tend not to recommend that. And then when I say don't bring a character that you've always wanted to play, I'm not saying I've always wanted to play a thing, so I would like to play this thing. What I am saying is, sorry, I'm just clearing a whole bunch of Garbo things. There we go. Fine. The Canadian stereotyping, of course, Patrick. If you bring a character that you've always wanted to play, you're bringing a lot of expectations with you, and what I'm asking is for people to be willing to compromise. Because if you come in and you're like, this is what I want to play, I have the whole sheet, the whole backstory, everything ready to go, it means that you're not building with the other players, and it means that you are now either saying you must buy into my idea, or I'm not going to be happy because now my idea has changed. So I ask people to say, like, what's the thing about this character that you really want to do? What's the thing that really makes it important for you? What's the thing that you want to try? And if it's like, oh, well, I always just really wanted to try playing a monk. Okay, well, great. Now we know the thing you want most. Let's build around that. Or I've always wanted to play somebody who wasn't an orphan, finally, and whose village didn't burn down when they were 5. Great. We can work with that. Fantastic. But maybe it means that it's not going to be exactly the character that you planned on. So that's what I'd hope for. So Patrick says, it is good advice, though. Thank you. I've tried to give restrictions in a game and still had one player make a completely disconnected one. These days I'd send them back to the drawing board or work with them on a rewrite. Yeah. Honestly, it's better to kind of nip the problem in the bud right from the start instead of reluctantly starting game and then realizing after a couple of sessions that things are just already fucked. It's not a great place to be in. Cause a little pain before instead of a lot of pain later. Raccoon says, it's a bit like a lunar character I created way back when, never got to play her, but over time I built up this entire story for her. I can't bring her into an actual game. She's overly developed. Yeah. Yeah. Original character syndrome, as Kung Fu Fenris says. It's a player version of storytellers who have too much directly defined should write a novel. Storytellers who put in a ton of prep in their games, I salute you. You're doing great. Keep doing the way that you're doing. But there are definitely times where I've seen this happen where a storyteller has so much prepped that players have nowhere to move. And I'm not even talking about railroading here. I'm just talking about, like, for 90% of the game, it's the storyteller talking. And players just not knowing what to do or say because clearly the storyteller is already somewhere else and they don't have room to negotiate in that game. Bring an entirely baked character as a player and you're doing the same thing, just in a different context. If I have no way to interact with your story because you've already written it in your head, then you're not doing a role-playing game. You're putting on an improv or a scripted play performance. That's kind of what we all showed up for. Biggest mistake that I see people do in large-scale LARPs is assume that all the players want to sit down and watch 5 NPCs have a big argument and a fight for 2 hours instead of them getting to play themselves. I see it happen a bunch. It sucks. It's not fun. People go to these things to play. They don't tend to go to these things just to watch. And oftentimes what they're watching, it's not like a theater performance that everybody has practiced and written and workshopped and, trained for. It's something that people are just like extending because they're rambling. They don't know how much time they're taking up. Their choreographed fight is not terribly good because they don't actually know how to do a choreographed fight. And then everybody kind of is like, okay, well, then that's that. You want to set the stage, do it in 3 minutes and everyone's going to be way happier. So, yes, LARPs are communal experience designs and not a story. And I think that goes for most, if not all, role-playing. The instant that one person has too much control over the story, it becomes a problem because then what you're doing is no longer playing a game with everybody. You're now just a participant as an audience member, and that's just not fun. Alfarius says, I felt bad in my Exalted game last night because about a full hour of play was almost me having to put on a show like that, but it's because they spent like 3 sessions setting stuff up. So that's different if the players want this. It's different if the players are asking for it. One thing that my players say is that sometimes they like engineering situations where I have to argue with myself. And if that's what they're looking for, great. I'm fine with that. Fantastic. But you really need to know that that's what they want as opposed to assuming. Patrick says, I'm planning a Wild Sea campaign, and that's a game where your ship is a character that you build together. It's also where different expectations or wackiness collide. So in my campaign, having learned from an earlier one, I'll give them a pre-made ship at the start to direct what kind of game it'll be, but give them opportunities to develop it over sessions. So I think that's fantastic. Wild Sea is a fascinating game for me. It is a gorgeous game. I think that it's a book that people can take a look at and read. It's got some really interesting ideas in there. It's not geared towards the kind of games that we tend to play here on this stream. And that's not a knock against it. It's just, I can recognize when a system is fascinating for us, but for us it would be more of like a mini campaign as opposed to a full campaign for us. And sometimes that's just a lot of work to put in, to learn a whole system and do all that just for something that will last only a few sessions for us. But it is a magnificent looking game. It's gorgeously printed too. Oof. But yeah, the idea of having the ship be almost like a character, it's kind of something that we're using in our current Exalted campaign. The ship doesn't necessarily have a personality, but it is meant to be the hub, right? And players will be able to customize the ship as they see fit. But this is a great way of establishing, these are my expectations for the game. Do you think that you would enjoy playing in a game where the ship is like this? Means that then everybody kind of has something to grab onto and buy into before they go out and start creating their characters. And I think that's a fantastic idea. Yeah. I'm great at talking shit at myself. Listen closely next time one of my NPCs is trash talking another. Patrick, by the way, I absolutely biffed the online Continentals yesterday. I went 1-4 and dropped. Don't play in a top tier competitive event if you haven't played Jinteki in years, and don't play, especially if you've never played the decks that you elected to play with no practice. Just don't do it. It's just not a good idea. It's just not a good idea. And like, I've gone the past 3 events that I've been at here locally, I'm undefeated. I haven't lost a game. Why didn't I play those decks? Because I'm stupid. But Op is going to get banned out. Pretty sure. Just, that's between me and Patrick at this point. But Op made fully half the top 16. I imagine that it's going to see some action before Worlds. Yeah, exactly, Patrick. No, the main problem that I had, it wasn't really the decks. The main problem is I was making a lot of little mistakes because I was clicking the wrong cards or doing things, and I wasn't comfortable asking for takebacks. So things like I was using the Class Act, and instead of clicking on the card that I wanted in my hand, I clicked the card. Sorry, instead of clicking the card that I wanted to bottom, I clicked the one that I put in my hand. So I fucked that up, and I didn't undo that click. And I should have. But also, it only started at 1 p.m. and it went on until well past midnight, and I was like, that's too much for me to sit in front of my computer and not see anybody else. So, yeah. Anyway, well, let's see. Man, there are a lot of games. Like, there's games behind here that I've never played and still think are great, and I love reading them as well. Like, I've got behind me, I have Tales from the Loop, a very generous gift from Ellie Spot. Fantastic. Still don't think it would work on this stream, but it was a wonderful thing to look through. Funnily enough, Changeling the Lost. I ran a LARP of Changeling the Lost briefly. It did not pan out. But Trauma the Crying is a game that we were very interested in, and then COVID happened. We were going to do a LARP of The Lost. Then COVID happened, and now the idea of playing Trauma Simulator just doesn't appeal to us at the moment. We'll see if that happens again. But yeah, Daggerheart right here, right? Still think that if I was going to play D&D, I'd much rather play Daggerheart, but it ended up just not being what excited us here, so. Love Changeling the Lost, but sorry, Love Changeling the Lost being the right group for it. Yeah. Yes, Patrick, that is the LARP that you almost joined. That is indeed what it was. So, yeah. So sorry, Kung Fu Fenders answered you, Patrick. Tales from the Loop uses the Year Zero engine. I do have Order of the Stick books back here. As far as I can tell, I have all of them. I think I might be missing some of the PDFs, potentially. A game shelf is far smaller than I would have expected. So when I moved 10 years ago, thereabouts, I ditched basically my entire collection, almost all of it, sold it or donated it, because I was moving across the continent, and I literally could only take one suitcase with me. So I ditched them. And now I have PDFs. And honestly, that's fine with me. The hard copies that we have tend to be ones that players use more than me. They like having the hard copy. I tend to, when I'm playing or when I'm running games, I tend to have them in PDF form in front of me here. It's much easier for me to search through things if I can use hyperlinks and search engines and bookmarks, whereas they tend to prefer to have the book in front of them, which I think is great. Different for different people, but I got past the idea that I needed to have a lot of hardcover books in order to make myself look better. Yeah, the comics has gotten into weird selling. So I've had some conversations with Rich Burlew, who is the author and artist behind the Order of the Stick. And honestly, I think some of it is just overwhelming. And I think some of it is just handling the stuff that he has to handle in his own personal life. So, what's the book between Exalted Essence and Daggerheart? So Essence is here, Daggerheart is here. The book between them is The World of Android. This was a present that Scott gave me, actually. We don't actually exchange gifts very often for birthdays and such, but this was one. I think that it was partially because I was going away. And this is the setting book for Fantasy Flight's Android universe. Now, it's largely a universe that I think the last thing that they kind of released for it was the Genesis Shadows of the Beanstalk, or Shadow of the Beanstalk supplement. But Android Netrunner was based in this universe. And so a lot of the art in this book, because this is kind of like a setting book and it's also an art book, but a lot of the art is the art that you'd find on cards. And it's actually quite an interesting book. It's lovely. But it in and of itself is not a role-playing book. Although you could use it in conjunction with Shadow of the Beanstalk, I imagine. But we don't like the Genesis system here, so we don't. But yeah, I have worked with writers. I worked with one writer who very specifically at one point, they'd mentioned that you can tell how good a writer is by the size of the library that they have behind them when they're on a video call. And I took him to task for it. I was mostly like the thing that I was really frustrated with is that the implication that somebody who is couldn't afford to own books couldn't be a good writer. Libraries exist for a reason, y'all. I think liking book is a great thing. I worked in libraries for a decade. I have handled many a book. I think they're great. I just have realized that for my own personal workflow, having the PDF is very useful, and for my players, having the book app. But we also like to support the games that we play, right? So the main issue that I've run into, though, and the sort of the problem that I have with Renegade at the moment is that we like to get books when they're first announced. We desperately want to get them in, and they are so expensive to ship here. We could either wait several months until distributors in Canada get a hold of them, or we can order them directly, but then they cost, not only do they cost quite a bit more than they would normally, but also the shipping costs and then the customs cost and the handling fees mean that we're often paying more than double what the book is costing at MSRP from Renegade, which is a big pain. So I imagine that this is not unknown to you, KFF, knowing what you have done. But it is very frustrating because we want to have more hardcover books. We want to support the stuff that we have, but oftentimes I will just buy the PDF for source books that players aren't necessarily as interested in, simply because it's just not economically feasible. Requiem says, I find that even if you don't play the game the book contains, it doesn't hurt to have because it's a book full of potential ideas for other games. Yep. FedEx's bonus fees are awful. FedEx is awful for this. UPS is pretty bad for it as well. The best way that you can get this is actually if you're getting it from USPS. You tend to get the cheapest rates from them. Chronicles of the Black Labyrinth has just shipped. Yeah. So there's that too. So we'll have to see any future Vampire 6th edition. Vampires are popular enough that we may see them in stores kind of more concretely. But one thing that I can at least say is that it doesn't have special dice. And not having special dice, as much as I think that Hunger Dice are really cool, and that Rage Dice I really enjoyed, they also could be used without having special dice. You could just use them with normal D10s. And the fact that the playtest currently has them being like, nah, you just need D10s, that's it, that gives me some hope, because they're at least not falling into the fantasy flight, oh, these all need custom dice, and the only place where you can get these custom dice is through us. So if it's printed in the EU, hopefully it won't be so bad, because, I mean, hey, technically we shouldn't have tariffs between Canada and the European Union. So there's that too. But we'll have to see about that. Any other questions? Any other games that people are coming up? Interesting things that they're running into? This has been a great clinic hour so far. The system never needed custom dice. 6+. Yeah, well, I still, funnily enough, if they're here, they might be here. I have in my hands my Mage the Awakening dice, where the 10, 8, 9, and 8 are white, but all the other numbers are not. And so these dice, funnily enough, and I have a bunch of these, would work for the 6th edition of Vampire because they highlight the numbers that are specifically successes. Very odd. I didn't think that those dice would ever need to see use again. But I did have them. Knowing my Onyx Path reservations, are there Chronicles of Darkness games that I'd be interested in at some point? So, my Onyx Path reservations are complicated. As you might have seen, we're playing Exalted, which right now is licensed by Onyx Path. We don't have an official relationship with them anymore. We used to, like when we first did Exalt Twitch Nexus, we had an arrangement with them where we got the playtest materials early so that we could start streaming it early. We had a bit of communication back and forth. They sent us a copy of the book. They also sent us a copy of Dragon Blooded when we, not RPGClinic, but when Full Party happened. They sent us that as well. The thing is, since then, there's been a lot of talk with them, not recently, but when we were running Academy, where they were like, hey, this is great, but would you rather play other games? And we were like, no thanks, like we're just not that interested in the other games that you have available right now, but, you know, thank you. And they were like, yeah, but you could play other games. I don't blame Onyx Path for trying to push their other game lines, especially because they own those properties, but we just weren't that interested. And then when it came down to the Exalted Essence manuscript, we found that disappointing, but we especially found it disappointing that it took forever then to get delivered. We ordered 2 hardcover copies of it, which we paid for, and they arrived well after that game ended. And not that we were expecting it necessarily, but like it was clearly half-baked, and it was during COVID, so there were always excuses, but then they'd be like, yeah, but what about our other things? And I'm like, you can't ask me to support other Kickstarters when you haven't even fulfilled these ones. So and also yeah, they need to pay better for sort of things. So so how's Mythic Bastion Land working for you? That's a game that I think is also gorgeous. Gil's Sidereal game is fizzling out, unfortunately, but my Daggerheart game is going strong. I'm looking forward to my next game, so I'm not complaining about my current RPGing. Games fizzle. It is what it is. That is kind of the thing that we just have to deal with. It sucks. But it is too bad. The best thing that I can tell you is if it's fizzling, see what you can do to just put an end, to just have it happen. Just close the book instead of letting it kind of vanish into the ether. Although I guess that'd be pretty thematically appropriate for a Sidereal's game. Yeah, Jade Storm. Yeah. I'm not impressed by some of the stuff that they've done recently, and so I'm less likely to try and support them until I see some reviews that, you know, make things cool again. Like Curseborn, it's a lot of the things that Onyx Path is doing right now is that it feels like they're constantly chasing after others. Like their story path system is Storyteller, but different. Curseborn is their World of Darkness, but different. And it just doesn't feel great. Like there's a spark missing that I wish was there. And that's nothing against the designers who are currently working on it or anything like that. It's just not for me. But some part of me also wonders how much of it is we're telling you to chase trends. I don't know. I don't have that insight. But like, if I want something that's World of Darkness, at the moment, I'd rather just go to the source. I wouldn't want to play the carbon copy of it. The hex crawling focus is the interesting part for me, Osap. I think that's very cool. Jam ended up refreshing the mist that we'd have more to do in order to reach endgame. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, they stop hiring top earners. So that's the other thing, is that I get the hustle. It's not like writing for role-playing games is super lucrative, but when you try to develop talent and then you just shut that talent down because then they start asking for more money, it's a dangerous game of eating your own tail that you're playing at that point, right? Like, you can't develop and grow if you're constantly cycling your talent out because they're pricing, or you're pricing them out. So not fantastic. Yeah, I don't have inside baseball on them anymore either. There's people at OPP who I still talk to, this is not a criticism of everybody who works there or anybody who's worked with them at all. A lot of it is just the stuff that they make is just stuff I'm not that interested in right now. But they at one point there was also a big kind of gesture of like, we're going to put you in our newsletter. And I was like, oh, okay, that's really cool. And then it was always like, you'd have to scroll to the very bottom and there'd be a link and it would be wrong information about our game. And it's like, oh, great. Like, okay. And when we checked our metrics, nobody ever tuned in as a result of their newsletter. Not one. And they were acting like they were like doing us a big favor, like we had to give them weekly updates. And it was just like, but we're getting nothing out of it, like literally nothing. So that's all. See, I'd rather pay more for a book that's good, and that I feel like the people who worked on that book are being supported properly. That's what I would prefer. I don't want to pay less for a product that's less good and that the writers are not treated well. So, look, in the end, I do this because it's a hobby. You know, I don't want to make my frustration with OPP into something more than it isn't, because it's not like we had a business relationship that then went sour or anything like that. And I don't want to criticize anybody for enjoying their stuff. It's just not for me. I've never been a fan of StoryPath. I don't see how it's better, to be honest. I think it's mechanically awkward and clunky. But not like the storyteller system is like super smooth and streamlined either, but I just find that StoryPath is just like, oh, we're storyteller, but worse. So not too fun. Yeah, it was a blog hidden on their webpage. Yeah, exactly. So when I was playing Dragon Bane, the GM was borrowing the hex crawl mechanics from Forbidden Lands, so it's definitely a fun mechanic to play with. Yeah, I think that it would be cool. Part of me wonders whether we would ever do that here, but because so much of, like, I'm not sure if I would want to stream it, because I think that a lot of it is in the book, and I don't want to ruin the book for anybody. But we'll see. StoryPath Ultra was needed for a reason. Yeah, but I still don't like it that much, to be honest. Folks, I'm sorry that we didn't get Datafall 2 today, but as you can see, I am alone here. We don't have our players, and without the players, it's kind of hard to run the game. That doesn't mean, however, that you shouldn't be tuning in next week, where we will be returning to Datafall, same time that we normally have, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it as well. Don't forget, you can always message us on Discord. You can also message me directly if you have thoughts. We're looking for feedback, whatever it may be, as long as it is given honestly and with intent for us to improve. So if you're not enjoying things, I would still love to hear it. If you're having a fantastic time, I would love to hear it. The main thing is, if you're enjoying it, if you're enjoying any kind of content, telling somebody about it is often the kindest way to thank the people who did it. I know that people are like and subscribe. I don't care about liking or subscribing. I just want to know if you're enjoying it. So let us know. It was definitely fun to have this today. Don't forget, in about 2 hours, Pinky Pact will be live, I think. I'm glad that you're drawing Weirdness. That's very cool. Weirdness, some of my favorite fan art coming from Weirdness. And thanks for tuning in. Super appreciated. Just don't forget that if you're ever in the middle of a bad situation while you're role-playing, and it kind of sucks, and you don't know what to do about it, it's often the hardest option, but often the best option, to use your word hole. See you next time.